Hi guys! If you've been following along, you know we've already explored the why behind a creative business, that deeper purpose that fuels our work. And then we got clear on the what, your goals and vision. Now it's time for the next step, the how. And that starts with one of the most confusing questions we face as a creative entrepreneur. Where do I actually sell my work? In the next two videos, we are diving into exactly that, breaking down your options, what to consider, and how to choose the path that fits you best. Let's get into it. I made my very first sales online, right in the middle of the pandemic. Back then, I didn't have any audience, no dedicated Instagram page, no Facebook account, not even a website. And let's just say that my photography skills were questionable at best. I took pictures of my pieces on the floor with random fake flowers and a very chaotic, not so pretty background. But I shared them anyway on various expat groups on Facebook. And that's how I found my first set of customers, some of whom have become dear friends over the years. The point I want to make here is where you start doesn't matter as much as simply starting. If you already have that clarity on where to begin, amazing. But if you don't worry, I've got you. In the beginning, we all struggle with questions like, do I open my own online shop and hope the right people find it? Do I sign up for markets and hope and cross my fingers for good weather and good footfall? Or do I pitch my work to boutiques trying to sound sure of myself, when talking about wholesale margins and things like that? The truth is, there's no one size fits all answer. The right place to sell your ceramics depends on your goals, your personality, your lifestyle, and your business model. Now, there's a lot I want to cover, so I've broken down this video into two parts. In part one today, we look at, first of all, the main offline options for ceramic artists to sell their work. Then we look at the pros and cons of each of these options because every path has its perks and some pitfalls, and the key factors to help you choose what's right for you, your lifestyle, and how social you're feeling on any given day. All right, let's kick things off by talking about one of the most classic ways to sell our ceramics, markets. Markets are where your beautiful ceramics meet the real world. It's where many makers, myself included, get their first taste of selling in person. Now, what are markets? They are events where you set up a booth or a table and sell your work directly to your customers. Think open air markets, holiday bazaars, Christmas fairs, curated design fairs, makers fairs, and even your local farmers market if they're cool enough to have a pottery booth next to a probably organic kale shake shop. Let's start with the pros of markets. First of all is immediate feedback. There's nothing like seeing a customer pick up your mug and say, "Ooh, this feels so good." That's instant market research and a tiny ego boost all in one. Secondly, it helps build local presence and community. If you're in this for the long haul, markets are gold for creating real life connections with people in your community. You'll meet your customers who come back for years, also fellow makers who become friends. Third is real time storytelling. You can actually talk about your process, your glazes, your firing technique, why this one bowl is supposed to be wonky. This is your stage. You are the brand, the artist, and the customer service team all in one. And they get to experience all of it. Fourth, and the most obvious one, is the instant sales. Someone loves a piece, they buy it, and you both walk away happy. No shipping drama, no delayed payments, nothing of that sort. There are, of course, a few cons that come with the markets. First of all, they are exhausting and sweaty if you are in a tropical country like I am. Between packing, hauling, setting up, smiling for 8 to 10 hours straight, and tearing it all down again, markets are not for the faint of heart, especially when they're outside and you have to wrestle with wind, sun, and rain also sometimes. Secondly, they require upfront investment. Think about booth fee, displays, tablecloth, your business cards, signage, shopping bags, packing material. Basically, you're creating a tiny mobile shop, and all of this adds up. Again, if you're in it for the long haul, this initial expense is more of an investment. Third is sales can be unpredictable. One market might be sellout, the next, crickets. So make sure you research the market before committing. It is a lot of work, and not every market draws the right kind of crowd. Fourth, it eats into your studio time. Prepping for a market, pricing, packaging, labeling, inventory can take days, and that's time away from doing what you love most, which is getting your hands muddy. So, who is this for? Markets are great if you enjoy talking to people or at least don't deeply dread it. Secondly, if you want quick sales and real time feedback, and you've got the stamina to stand on your feet all day while answering questions like, is this handmade? Is this microwave safe? And things like that. Now, a few tips for someone who's done a few markets. First of all, do your homework. Not all markets are created equal. Some are beautifully curated with the right audience, others are next to a fried food stall and a karaoke machine. You can guess which one sold more pieces. Secondly, presentation matters. How you display your work directly affects how people perceive its value. A well styled table with levels, text, and good lighting can elevate your ceramics from cute to collectible. Thirdly, have a range of prices. Those little tinky dishes you made as fillers, they often end up covering your entire table fee. Especially important when that table costs about $600 to $900, as it often does in Singapore. Now, if all this sounds like a jam, amazing. Markets can be super fun and a great launchpad for your business. But if the idea of being on all day makes you want to crawl into a kiln and hide, don't worry, we've got more options coming up. Consignments or wholesale to boutiques. Let's shift gears and talk about a more refined way to sell. Think clean shelves, curated interiors, and a calm, quiet space. I'm talking about selling your ceramics through boutiques, either on consignment or through wholesale. You know those lovely lifestyle stores that smell like sandalwood and sell linen aprons, artisanal honey, and $70 candles? Yep, those are the ones. This is a great way to get your work in front of a new design savvy audience, especially if you're not a fan of packing orders or chatting with customers at markets all weekend. But before you hand over your entire collection, let's look at what this path really involves. There are two ways you might work with a store. First is consignment. You give them the pieces, they display and hopefully sell them, and you get paid only if and when they sell. The shop owner obviously keeps a cut, which can vary from 25 to 40% depending on the store, location, and a whole lot of other terms and conditions. The second one is wholesale, where the store owner will buy your work upfront, usually at a discounted price, which is typically 50%, and resell it at the retail price. You get cash in hand, they get stock to sell. Everyone's happy? Ideally. Now, of course, there are a few pros and cons. Let's start with the pros. First of all, is the exposure in curated spaces. You get your work into places people go to discover beautiful things. Stores like these attract customers who appreciate handmade, unique design and are willing to pay for it. And that is really important. Secondly, no direct customer management. No chasing payments, replying to DMs, or figuring out why a mug broke in transit. The store handles the customer side of things. You get to stay in the studio doing what you love. Third is the credibility boost. Being stocked in a respectable boutique or gallery gives your brand a certain shine. It builds trust, especially if you're still growing your online and social presence. Fourth is diversifies your income. If you're also selling online or at markets, this adds another stream. And since stores often do repeat orders, it can create a rhythm of consistent income. What are the cons? First of all, the low profit margins. Wholesale typically means you're selling at about 50% of retail price. Consignment commission may be lower, which means you get to keep a higher percentage, but remember you only get paid when the item actually sells and sometimes months later. Second is inventory limbo. With consignment, your pieces are tied up in a store, not generating cash until they sell. If they don't, you're stuck with more inventory or worse, missing mugs and no explanation. Third, less control over display and branding. You don't get to style the shelf, train the sales staff, or make sure your artist bio is spelled correctly. And sometimes your beautiful melty glaze sits next to a neon toy. It's a choice, but yeah, you don't really have an option how it's displayed. Fourth is payment delays and risk. Some stores operate on net 30, net 60, net whatever they feel like it, and occasionally things vanish. Ask any artist who's on consignment for some time. There's always the few mystery pieces that just disappear. So you have to be okay with that. Now, this is a good option for you if you're producing at enough volume to stock other people's shelves without emptying yours. Secondly, you want more consistent income streams. Third, you're focused on getting your work into beautifully curated spaces which are aligned with your brand. And fourth, you're okay with slightly less control in exchange for greater reach and visibility. Now, a quick tip here. When working with shops, get everything in writing. Seriously, a simple agreement that covers terms like who's responsible for damages or thefts, when are the payments being made, how long the pieces stay on the floor, who pays return shipping if needed. All of this will save you a ton of headache later. And also keep communication friendly but professional. A quick email every few weeks asking how are sales going, need a restock, just keeps you top of mind without feeling pushy. So whether you go consignment, wholesale, or just drop off a few pieces at a friend's store to test the waters, This can be a really great way to grow your visibility and income without doing all the selling yourself. Be clear about your pricing, what you expect from the partnership, and how your work will be presented in the store. Studio sales or open house events. Okay, let's talk about something that sounds a little rustic, a little cozy, and a lot like your introverted artist self might actually enjoy, which is studio sales. Inviting people into your creative space, lighting a few candles, making some snacks, and casually selling your beautiful pottery right where it was made. Now, what are the pros? First of all, high profit margins. There are no middlemen here. No booth rental fees, no consignment splits, no commission cuts. It's just you, your work, and your customers, which means you get to keep 100% of every sale. Secondly, it builds deep, loyal customer relationships. When someone walks into your studio, sees your shelves, your glazes, your half done mugs, they connect with the maker behind that magic. They get to hear the stories. That connection creates fans for life and fans who go on to tell their friends as well. Third, it's an experience, not just a sale. People love behind the scenes. Hosting a studio event is like letting people peek behind the curtain at your creative process. It gives your work depth, context, and heart. Plus, the environment is completely in your control. You pick the music, the lighting, the layout, the vibe. It's your brand that comes to life. Of course, it comes with a few cons. First of all, is that it's limited to local audience. Unless your fans are flying in from other cities, in which case I want to be you, your reach is naturally limited to people who can physically make it to your space, right? Second is the promotion and setup is a lot of work. You'll need to plan in advance, set out invites or newsletters, maybe run a few ads locally, set up your space to look shop ready. It's like hosting a small event, a mini wedding, except with more mugs and less champagne. Third, it's not feasible for everyone. If your studio is your dining table or your storage space also doubles up as a laundry room, hosting an open house might not feel so on brand. And if you live in an apartment and you don't love strangers walking through your space or aren't zoned in for retail, this might not be the best fit for you. Now, this is good for you if you want meaningful in person connections with your customers. You love curating space and experience that reflects your work. You're trying to build a local community around your art, and you have a space you feel comfortable opening up, whether once a year or once a season, completely depends on you. A few quick tips here. When doing an open studio, create a flow. Arrange your pieces thoughtfully so people aren't crowding at signages, prices, just like you do in any market in a booth space. Offer small perks. Think free gift wrapping, a little discount for returning customers, or a handmade ornament with the purchase over a certain amount. Fourth is to have a payment system ready, whether it's QR codes, card readers, or good old fashioned cash. Make it easy for people to buy when they fall in love with your work. Studio sales are about more than just selling, they're about inviting people into your world, showing them where the magic happens, and turning casual buyers into lifelong collectors who can, say things like, I bought this mug straight from the artist in her studio. Another offline way to sell your work is through commissions and custom orders. This is where someone comes to you with a very specific request, like, can you make 50 ceramic teacups with my dog's face for my wedding? Or I love your vases. Can you do this in the exact shade of lilac, to match my client's mood board from Pinterest? Commissions can be lovely, they are personal, they are lucrative, but also not for everyone. Let's unpack this. What are the pros? First of all, is a higher price point. Custom work usually means premium pricing. People are paying not just for your time and skill, but for your attention to their vision. It is one of a kind piece, and that exclusivity deserves a higher rate. Second is deep personal connection. When someone commissions a piece from you, they are emotionally invested. Whether it's a wedding set, a housewarming gift, or a custom piece, you become part of the story, and that's incredibly special. Third is potential for long term clients. If you nail that custom dinner set for an interior designer, guess who's coming back the next time they style a space? Yep, you. Commissions can build relationships that turn into ongoing work and referrals. Now, what are the cons? Firstly, they are time consuming and hard to scale. Custom work is often slow work. You're not just batching, you are not repeating. You are starting from scratch, and if you're already juggling production, markets, or family life, it can stretch you thin. Second is the risk of miscommunication, and this one is huge. We've all been there. When the client says earthy tones and you interpret that as warm clay and rust glazes, but they actually meant sage green and, sky blue. Suddenly, your beautiful set looks like a desert dream when they were hoping for ocean vibes. Unless you're a mind reader, this is where your contracts, sketches, samples, and very clear conversations become extremely essential. Third is the creative restrictions. Sometimes custom work feels less like creative freedom and more like a cage. You might hear, can you make this just like this, but not like that? I saw something on Pinterest, and suddenly you're creating someone else's vision and not your own. This can sap your creative energy fast, especially if you're not naturally drawn to client led work. Now, this is good for you if you enjoy collaborative creation, you're super detail oriented, you have excellent communication skills, and you're comfortable setting boundaries and sticking to them. Now, a few quick tips for taking commissions. First of all, have a clear process. Outline how it works from inquiry to deposit to delivery. The more clarity you provide upfront, the smoother things go for everyone. Secondly, use contracts or order forms. Even for small jobs, a simple agreement outlining scope, timelines, what happens if things change can save a lot of headaches later. Third, get visual references. Ask your client to send color swatches, mood boards, or examples. The more you understand their vision, the better you can translate it to clay. Fourth is ask for a deposit. Always full stop. This ensures the client is serious and helps you avoid getting ghosted after you've already started the work or you finished the work. Fifth, know when to say no. Not every custom request is worth taking. If it is creatively draining, financially underwhelming, or just doesn't vibe with your style, it's okay to politely decline. Custom work can be rewarding, both financially and creatively, if you're clear about your boundaries, pricing, and process. It's not for everyone, and that's totally okay. But if you do love crafting pieces that are deeply personal and meaningful for someone else, this could be a beautiful lane to explore. Just make sure that while you're honoring their vision, you're not losing sight of your own. So, to sum it all up, here are the main offline options available to artists and makers. First is in person markets and craft fairs, great for meeting customers face to face and getting real time feedback. Second is consignment or wholesale to boutiques, a way to reach wider audience without handling every sale yourself. Third is studio sales or open house events, perfect if you want to build community and invite people into your creative space. Fourth is commissions and custom orders, ideal if you enjoy creating personalized pieces and working one on one with clients. Which option is best? Well, that really depends on your personality, your goals, and the kind of business you want to build. As I mentioned earlier, there's no one size fits all approach, and that's the beauty of it. You get to design a business that works best for you. In part 2, we'll dive into the online side of things, selling through website, marketplaces, and social media, with all the pros and cons and tips you need to make informed decision. If you found this helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps support the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye.